reaction to what the U.S. Secretary of State has just said?
Well, he's made similar comments before. What he's talking about is the original plan or the original mission from 2001 to early 2002, which was to militarily damage the Taliban and to harm the al-Qaeda's ability to conduct international terrorism. Those were accomplished. And in fact, I've actually already argued many times that's shortly after that is when we should have withdrawn instead of turning it into a nation building war. But look, I mean, people are going to do whatever they can to try to put the best face on this. But there's no good face to put on this. This is an abject military defeat, and it has now exposed more than 20 years of unwillingness to acknowledge reality on the ground and an unwillingness to be honest about it and just still trying to hope that something good could come out of it. And now then we have the bitter fruit of that failure.
And Ambassador Galbraith was saying the failure can just be seen in how quickly the actual government and the military collapsed. So the trillions of dollars that was invested into this country over 20 years crumbled within days.
Right. And look, this goes back when you look at actually the record, especially things that have been revealed with the Afghan papers and with the WikiLeaks back in 2010 and with the SIGAR, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan, John Sopko. They have been reporting, relentlessly that the Afghan security forces are not being trained. They're not going to be capable. Relying on them, it's just not going to work. And our senior officials knew it. And that's something that there's going to have to be a reckoning with, quite frankly, is that if we knew that this was going to happen and yet we continue to pretend that it wasn't, somebody has to answer for that. Because now then, thousands of people have already paid with their lives, and God only knows what's going to happen once they get under a complete Taliban rule.
In many ways, when I've spoken to Afghan leadership, they saw the departure of Americans as something that was inevitable. They thought that perhaps there'd be a small counterterrorism force kept in the country, but eventually the United States would go. It's more that the way in which the exit strategy was implemented, there really was no plan as far as they were concerned.
Yeah, that illustrates a second problem, though I have plenty of scoring to heap on our portion of this. The other side of that is that the Afghan leaders from both political and military were equally responsible for this because they failed to take advantage of the opportunity to get corruption under control and to focus on actually making it a strong security force, not just on using it to make money and get power for various warlords and various other people. And to your second point there, I actually very strongly agree, because I've been arguing since 2017 that we should announce our withdrawal, continue on with another 18 to 24 months of continued support at that same level to give everybody a chance to get their mind wrapped around this, to understand that they're going to be responsible, to coordinate everything so it's done in a very professional and logical manner. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And we had one chance after Trump made that February 2020 deal. We had 14 months to do it, but we did not take advantage of it because, frankly, the Pentagon didn't want to get out. So they drug their feet. They didn't take any action. I think that they probably thought that Biden would just continue the mission like the other presidents had done. And when he finally did make that call, that's the one error I think that President Biden did make, is that he didn't put in, even a 12-month period. He just said, all right, we're leaving right now. And then there was complete chaos because from sources I have on the ground in Afghanistan, many of the leaders were told by the Pentagon leaders, hey, don't worry, we're still going to be here. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. And then when the plug got pulled, they were all shocked and no one was prepared.
And now, for many months, actually, the UN and US Treasury have said that the Taliban are still very much in bed, if you were, if you'd let me say, with al-Qaeda. Do you think that there is the possibility that the United States would be forced back into the country like they were in Iraq?
There's a lot of different views on that, and intelligence that very much contradicts that. It said that there's actually a very much hands-off on that. And look, the Taliban aren't stupid. I mean, they have now spent 20 years to try to get back into power. The last thing they're going to do is to just jump in bed and allow themselves to be used as another platform to defend terrorists against the United States, knowing for sure that if we get attacked, and it comes from them, and that they were part of it, we would not hesitate to rain down fire and fury on them again. Even if we didn't invade, they know that we could absolutely wreak havoc on them, and they're not in any hurry to give up the power. They just are on the threshold of gaining. So I don't think that we're going to do that. But the bigger issue is that we don't have to go into Afghanistan. We didn't need to stay in Afghanistan to keep America safe or to keep, Europe safe, our NATO allies. We can do that with many other ways for our ability to project power, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance all over the world, because Afghanistan is just one tiny place in a whole world of possibilities where terrorist events can be planned. So we have to protect ourselves from everywhere, and we do. As we've seen since 9/11, we hadn't had any major terrorist attacks, and that's the reason why. So I don't worry about that part at all, because we're already worried, taking care of it.
But militarily,
I just want to cut off this here.
If you were to look at this in sort of just completely cold, militarily, given the United States and its Western allies didn't seem to have a clear-cut policy, and they followed what our other guests have said was a failed policy, do you think you could say then that the Taliban deserved to win?
Well, I mean, if you take the morality out of it, there is no question that they have been laser focused on what they're doing. That's something else I think it's important to point out here. This collapse did not happen just because we pulled out and, a month or so ago, suddenly they just marched on everything. This has been a very methodical strategy and carefully executed plan going back to 2017. And you can see a very methodical taking of district level organizations and groups and territory, and then now it accelerated into the cities of the provinces. And then, of course, once the collapse did start, they accelerated their plan. But they already had a really good plan in place. And from a military perspective, it's been fairly impressive, and very much in contrast to our inability to even come up with a good plan and our unwillingness to be honest about the failures.
How is the veteran community, and I know you can't speak for everyone, but in general, how are they reacting? Because we've heard veterans say, my heart was broken when I saw Kandahar fall. My heart was broken when I saw them marching towards Kabul. I've lost colleagues, I've lost friends in this war, and it's been incredibly difficult to see them roaming around our bases. How have they responded and reacted? What have their mothers said to you? What have they actually said to you?
Yeah, I have some of my own observations of that very same thing with Ghazni City, with Kandahar, with Mazar-e Sharif, and certainly in Kabul. All these places that I've been before. I was headquartered in Bagram in my last station there, and to see all of those things with Taliban rolling around it's frankly anguishing. And I also lost friends in Afghanistan to being killed in action, and it is really tough to swallow. And a lot of my friends are also, they're finally starting to ask the more bitter question of, why were our leaders telling us that this stuff was working all along, when now then we're starting to realize that it wasn't. And I think you might see some building momentum in that regard in the coming weeks and months, where people, the veterans are starting to ask the hard questions, because we were always told every time someone died that, he did a great service for the United States. He helped protect us, and he did a great job on the battlefield. Now they see that none of that was true, and that it was all literally has now evaporated. And so, again, there's going to have to be a reckoning, and somebody's going to have to answer for some of this.